Hey guys, Ziv here. Welcome to the second episode of the Owner Builder series. If you missed the first video, I'll link it up here and you can go check that out. But this episode's about regulatory requirements. I know, real boring stuff right at the get-go, but we need to sort of cover it because it will really set the foundation of everything you're going to do with owner building. So with the regulatory requirements, you're going to have to figure out how much of it you want to take on yourself. Because there are experts like architects, building designers, private certifiers who really know what they're talking about. And even though you're paying them money, it may be worth it because it is a fair rabbit hole that you have to get a lot of information on to figure out that everything is compliant and legal, because you don't want to build a house if you can't sell it at the end of the day, or, you know, it can't be signed off. So you really have to see, am I gonna tackle this legislation beast or not, and figure that out. Are you savvy with design? Do you like reading a lot of really dry documentation like the National Construction Code in Australia, or planning requirements, the Planning Act, whatever it may be in your state? It can be a lot of information and pretty overwhelming. So that's the first decision you've made. Now let's say you own a building it, you're doing it all yourself, you're going to go down the rabbit hole. Here's a few things that will get you started. You've obviously bought your block of land, and I won't go into buying a block of land, but with that, you will have got a certificate of title. That will be the first point to check, because it will have on it easements that are on the block. If there are any easements, anything that, is it, what sort of title? Is it freehold? All those sorts of things. Are you in a community? Are you in a heritage zone? And that will start to inform you what's going on. On my block in particular, I'll show you my certificate of title now. I had a lot of easements cutting through the block because I'm on a hammerhead in the valley, and at the bottom of my block, all the stormwater from my neighbours and all the sewers from my neighbours comes through my block. So there wasn't many options of where to build because I had to leave those easements free. And just because there's no easements on your block, I designed a whole building, put it into planning approval. I had a surveyor come out, survey the allotment. They didn't pick it up either. That's another thing we'll get onto in a second. The surveyor is probably the first thing you want to get done, even though you have your certificate of title. But I had a surveyor come out, survey the block, and then we submitted the plans to council, and council looked at them and went, actually, we want to throw an easement right through where you want to build. So we did our due diligence and got a professional in to survey it, identify any infrastructure. That's what surveyors do. There was nothing on there. There was no easement. And then council still, after the fact, threw an easement over it, and we had to change the whole design so we were not on the easement. So you can still get hit by curveballs no matter what. So yeah, get a surveyor out early on. That will identify the boundaries. Are your fences on the boundaries? If your fence is on the boundary and you look at your planning regulations and it says you have to be 1 meter off the boundary, then you know that you can measure off the fence. But if it's not, if your fence is, say, 1 meter outside your boundary, and then you build 1 meter off that fence, you're actually building on your boundary, and that's illegal. If in your planning rules it says you need to be 1 meter off your boundary. So there's lots of nitty gritties, and a surveyor will just help you identify. They usually peg out your block. You will get a detailed survey with contours, elevations, significant trees, and they'll have identified whatever infrastructure they can find on it. They usually do a search and they make sure everything's in the right spot. So it's really important to get a survey done if it hasn't been done already. But if it's an old survey, I would go again, because the accuracy of old surveys and the way that they did it, I seem to find that every time I get a survey, there's some sort of discrepancy. And sometimes they need to lodge the discrepancies with the state surveying authority. So yeah, it's a tricky process, but it's the best you can do is to get a surveyor. Then you have to look at your planning code. And in South Australia, we have what's called a planning portal. And in a lot of states, you have that as well, Victoria and just Queensland. I looked at the Queensland website and it was confusing as heck. I think you go individually to each council, but in South Australia, we have sort of one overarching, it's called the PDI Act, and everything is laid out. So we have a very common code now. And you can type in your allotment there, and then it will come up with everything. You can type in your allotment and your type of development, and it will come up with all the rules that apply to that development. So if your development is in a bushfire zone, or say it's in an airport, like near an airport, and you need to put in double glazing for sound, there's all sorts of things. If it's in a flood zone, if it's in a heritage zone, it'll all pop up. And then you can see the rules that apply to it. There's the deemed to satisfy rules, and then there's performance-based solutions as well. So you can always argue a case. So let's say every allotment has to have the front face of the house, and then the carport is set back by 2 meters, so that the dominant face of the dwelling is the house, not the carport, vice versa. But then if you go up and down the street, let's say, and you see there's a few examples of older built houses where the carport is in front of the primary face of the residence, then you have an argument where you can go, it is consistent with the character of the street. All of this is very much up to interpretation. A lot of councils have what's called a duty planner who is available usually. You can go into council and chat with a duty planner and just test the waters. And I find it really handy. You go, I'm looking at doing this, this, this. What do you think? Do you think that will get passed? And here's my argument as to why it should get passed. And then you can go from there. It'll give you a good sounding board of a place to get started with your design, and they can help inform you on whatever questions you have if you find the whole looking at all the rules that apply to your property a bit overwhelming. And then you need to figure out what approvals you actually need. If you're just doing internal renovations and they're cosmetic, you often don't need any sort of approval or even insurance. You can just project manage that yourself, flip it and be done. Obviously everything depends state by state, but that is generally how it goes. If you're doing an addition, you'll probably need the full amount, or a new house, you'll probably need, in South Australia, we call it planning approval, and then building rules consent, and then a development approval. So planning approval is where they check it with the council and your boundaries and your everything else, the outside of the house, the colour, if you have overlooking to neighbouring properties, if you're overshadowing neighbouring properties, all those sorts of things, they will check as an overarching planning thing. For building rules consent, they're more checking that it is compliant to the National Construction Code, that there's engineering in place and that engineering is correct. So they will check, okay, do we have stormwater engineering? Does that stormwater have the correct 1 in 100-year rainfall modelling? And then is there the correct amount of stormwater retention on site and detention to release that stormwater slowly to the curb or whatever, so that we don't flood all of that roof to the curb or onto the land. It'll check the engineering. Is the engineering correct? Has the correct wind speed been calculated in, so that the correct bracing requirements have been factored for? Has the correct beam widths, all of those sort of building rules. They'll also check for ambulance access, the provisions there. Are they to the code? They will check. They will go through it with a fine tooth comb, and usually we get private certifiers to do that rather than council, because it can take longer with council. And a private certifier can do that section of the approval in our state. They will also go over your energy efficiency requirements. I tend to do the energy efficiency requirements at planning stage, because you can still change the design of the house and add bigger windows, make smaller windows, and you don't affect the character and the look of the house or any of the overlooking. And that way you can balance performance with the other criteria that the planners are looking at. But it is really at the building rules consent stage where they check that the energy efficiency is to the code, which I don't think is correct. I think it should be checked at planning stage, because it is definitely much better at that stage. And it would save clients a lot of headache, and it would also mean you get better solutions. Imagine you designed a house and you didn't check its thermal performance, and then you get to building rules consent stage and you're under, and now you're having to find really elaborate ways of meeting that standard. It's difficult to make walls thicker. What do you lose? Internal floor area, or do you encroach on outside space, which could be encroaching on boundaries? Do you change windows and then go for a minor variation to council? It gets complex. So I would suggest any energy modelling, doing it during the planning phase. And the great thing, we have in Australia the NatHERS system, and you can get Hero or First Rate 5 and do like a little online tutorial and start playing around with your design. You might get an energy assessor to model it up for you, so you have the model, but then once you have the model, you can jump in there, change window sizes and add a fan or whatever you want and optimize it yourself, which I often get clients to do anyway, because first of all, it teaches them what design decisions they're making and how it affects the thermal performance of the house. Anyway, we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole. Yeah, I'll stay on track. So yeah, those are the three stages: planning approval, building rules consent, and then once you have the two, then it goes back to council, and then they check that nothing changed during the building rules consent that affected what was in the planning consent. So if you did change a window, they'll go, okay, to get your development approval, you changed your window in building rules consent and there's been a change, and we want all the documentation to be consistent from planning approval, building rules consent, and then when it is all ready, they just stamp the plan. Usually that only takes a week. It's more of a rubber stamp thing to see that you've got both approvals, and then you're ready to go. So that's the regulatory requirements with your allotment and planning and design. Now, with owner building, it changes state by state. In some states in Australia, you need an owner builder's license. You basically sit a little course and you get the insurances and you get like a white card and all these things. And once you've met the criteria, everywhere is different. Then you can get an owner builder's license and you can go ahead. In South Australia, you don't need an owner builder's license. You do need insurance though. And in South Australia, you need a nominated supervisor. A nominated supervisor can be a private certifier because they know all the building rules, right? So they can come in and check, and when you engage them to be the nominated supervisor, they'll tell you what they want out of you. It can be a building inspector. A lot of building inspectors offer that as part of their service, that they help owner builders through the process. It can be a builder or a supervisor as well. Any of those can be your nominated supervisor. I think even because architects are allowed to build, I think even an architect, I'm not sure on that one, so if you know, let me know in the comments, but I think an architect can be your nominated supervisor as well. And then you need your insurances. So generally in South Australia anyway, you can't get builder's warranty insurance as an owner builder, and neither can the nominated supervisor. I've tried and they basically said, nah, you can't get it. So I always try, and when I get nominated as a supervisor, I just check with the council, see what they want, because it's really for the council and for the next homeowner that you get that builder's warranty insurance, which just really, when you sign a fixed price contract with a builder, they have to take out, or cost plus, or any sort of contract with a builder, they have to take out builder's warranty insurance, and it basically protects the owner from defects and the build not getting completed within the 3-year time frame here in South Australia. The 3-year time frame, say if the builder goes insolvent or dies or something like that and the build no longer goes forward, it protects council that asset will still get built, and then basically they get their rates. And if that building gets sold within 7 years, it gives the new homeowner certain protections as well. So that's what it's there for. But as an owner builder, you can't take that insurance out. It's very difficult as a builder to get that type of insurance. To get qualified for that type of insurance, you need to get all your finances and everything vetted, and then you get pre-approval, and then you can take out that insurance. But basically in South Australia, owner builders don't need it, and you will get asked at the end of your planning application when you submit with council that you're beginning the building works. You will get asked to submit one, but you just have to say, I'm owner building, and then usually they go, okay, well, you don't need to submit this insurance. So that's basically it. Those are some of the regulations, at least in the planning stage. Owner builders have to meet many other regulations, right? Like work health and safety, because they're the managers of the site. So there will be other stuff further along in the course. So subscribe to the channel, and the next part of this course is going through concept plans. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, I know this one was super dry as the second episode, but we'll go more into concepts, how to design your place, all of those sorts of things. And this series will be about 10 episodes long, and they'll all be in a playlist. So check out the channel and find the playlist, and then you'll be able to follow along. If you're from the future and all the episodes are out, you can follow along in the playlist as well. So cheers for joining, guys. Hopefully there's some value there if you're beginning your owner builder journey. I know these are pretty casual chats, but if they're pretty popular, I'll try extend on them and get you more information about this process, because I know it can be daunting. It's a huge project when you start owner building, and I know it can be super daunting, and any sort of information to help is really valuable. So I hope this helps you a little bit, and yeah, and if it does, let me know by hitting like, because that way I can see that people are actually getting value out of it. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you on the next one where we talk about concepts. Thank you.